Okay, here we go. So this is Ginny and Jelly Belly, and we're in the middle of reading the book The Wild Women of Lake Anna, which of course Lake Anna is right by here, so it's right about a place nearby, and it's about an 11-year-old girl, Bailey Fish, who started growing up in Florida and then has moved in with her grandmother in Virginia for a little while. Her grandmother's called Sugar. And so anyway, chapter 5 is called A Spy in the Family. You know, you come from a family of wild women, said Sugar as she drove along the country roads on their way to town. Bailey studied the countryside. Besides the rolling hills, deep woods, and occasional glimpses of the creeks flowing into Lake Anna, she saw that in some places loggers had cleared the land of trees, leaving felled trunks and stumps with their roots upturned. That's Yumi up there. Oh boy. There we go. Wild women? Asked Bailey as she wondered if new trees would ever be planted in the fields with dead ones. Yes, my Aunt May, your great-great-aunt, was a spy during World War I. That's what we've heard about her anyway. She went to France and Spain as part of her job as a buyer for Macy's department store in New York. She was looking at all the latest fashions in Europe, but while she was there, she carried secret messages in code from our government. The enemy didn't suspect her because she was elegant and very clever, said Sugar. Wow, a real spy. I didn't even know we had a spy in our family. I didn't even know we had any great-greats, said Bailey. Mom and I watched a video about a lady spy. Did great-great-Aunt May wear a costume? I guess she dressed fancy so they wouldn't notice secret activities. Maybe she had a veil to cover her face. There's a picture of her on the wall in your bedroom. I'll show you when we get back, said Sugar. Aunt May was very beautiful with her red hair and green eyes. She had many lovely hats, including a little one with a small feather. Really? said Bailey, trying to remember. You can't see the feather very well, but it is there. There's a little pocket in the hat brim where she hid the messages. Then Sugar whispered, and I have that hat. You do? Bailey's eyes grew large. Can I see it? Sugar nodded. Did you or your mom ever want to be a spy, Sugar? Asked Bailey. You bet. I'm sort of a spy on that pollution problem we're investigating. Which reminds me, you've got to keep what you hear me talking about with Harry and others a secret. Promise? I promise, but I don't even know anybody to tell, said Bailey. The only person I've met so far is a rude boy named Justin Rudd and his dog. When did you meet him? You didn't tell me that, said Sugar with a hint of worry in her voice. Bailey squirmed. This morning. He was riding his bike down the street and made fun of me living with you and not with my parents. Said Sugar, frowning. She pushed her sunglasses higher on her nose and ran her hand through her short, wavy, dyed brown hair. Do you know him? Asked Bailey as the pickup slowed at a crossroad to let a tractor enter the highway. Yes, I know the family. Justin's father is pretty hard on the kids. They can never please him. Justin is the oldest of 3 or 4, I think. And although the father has enough money, he doesn't take good care of his family. I will say that I've seen Justin look after his little sisters, even if he does act mean to other kids. I doubt that he's all bad, but he has a temper and a reputation of being a bully. Don't let him get to you, and try to stay out of his way if you can, said Sugar. Okay, but I don't like him, said Bailey. Did you ever have a fight with his father? Sort of. Why? Asked Sugar. That's what Justin said, and he said something about his father wanting to get even, said Bailey. He sounded like he meant it. Well, it's a long story, said Sugar. His father has never forgiven me for calling Animal for control for what he was doing to his dogs a number of months ago. I saw him whipping one poor animal because it jumped out of the back of his truck. When the officers investigated, they saw animals that were chained and not very well cared for. So they took them away from him. There was a big story in the paper. He got mad and said that I would pay. What did he mean by that? Asked Bailey. Is he going to hurt you? I think he was just bluffing. I'm not terribly concerned. The sheriff is a friend of mine. He stops by to check on me from time to time, so don't you worry, said Sugar. Bailey wondered if she should mention the face in the window, but Sugar said, Hey, we're coming into town now. Mineral. Gee, it's not like Port Charlotte, said Bailey as she stared out the window. Hardly. No McDonald's, no big stores, but we can get what we need for the kittens at the market and something for supper too. Then I will stop at the post office and the bank. As they drove, Bailey looked at the few brick buildings, the gray railroad station, an abandoned school, churches, and the gas station at the main intersection with its one traffic light. This was a town? Where would she get school supplies and clothes? As if reading her mind, Sugar said, Someday soon we'll go to one of the cities to do more shopping. Mineral is great for little things and to meet people. It's a place to find out what's going on and to swap news. You can't really judge a town by its stores, she said. Now be thinking about what you would like for supper and what kind of food we should get for Shadow and Sally. Bailey remembered reading a book about traveling back in time and wondered if that was what was happening to her now. The town seemed really old. Sugar said, More than 100 years ago, Mineral was a thriving mineral town, mining town, with thousands of people living here. That's when they changed the name from Tollersville to Mineral because of its mines. What happened to all the people? When the mining ended, the workers went elsewhere to look for jobs. Now there are only about 450 people living in the town, said Sugar. I think that's the size of my school at home, said Bailey. As they loaded their brown grocery bag with kitten chow and a chicken Sugar planned to roast for supper into the truck, Bailey saw Justin Rudd glaring at her from a big green car filled with kids. The dented car with a large, tired-looking woman behind the wheel screeched into the market's parking lot and stopped near Sugar's truck. As her grandmother drove away, Bailey looked back and saw Justin carefully help one of his little blonde sisters out of the rear seat while his mother went ahead of them into the store. He bent down and retied her shoelaces before taking her hand. I still don't like him, thought Bailey. And we'll do another chapter, chapter 6, and this is called The Wild Women. This will be interesting, won't it? What about the other wild women? Bailey asked Sugar on the way home. She had been thinking about May and her hat the entire time her grandmother was in the post office. Well, my mother, your great-grandmother, was an adventurer. She climbed Mount Washington, went to Africa on safari, and drove a dog sled in Alaska once. I think that's pretty wild for a woman back then, said Sugar. Most women worked in their houses, raising their families. They didn't go off on adventures around the world like she did. Was she a spy too? Not that we know of, but she was a science teacher, and she kept specimens in jars in her cellar. Scared me half to death when I was a child, to see little dead things floating in glass jars. I had to look at them every time I took the laundry down to the wringer washer in the basement, or was sent to get a jar of jam from her shelves near the furnace. Little things like what? Asked Bailey. Like dead snakes and baby mice without fur, said Sugar, making a spooky face. Yuck, said Bailey. That's what I said, yuck. But I always looked at them anyway. Imagine what it would have been like to be in her classes and have her come in with those little jars, Sugar chuckled. That would be really yucky, said Bailey. And she had a reputation as a wild driver. Everybody in town got out of her way when they saw her coming down the road, usually on the wrong side. She was wild, all right. She liked adventures. Did you ever go on any rides with her? You bet. That's where I learned about treasure hunts and things you might find when you least expect it, said Sugar. So, you and my mother are also wild women? Asked Bailey as she opened the ginger snaps that Sugar bought for the ride home. Oh my, yes. We both love adventure. We're ready to pick up and go in a moment's notice. Pack our bags and go whenever adventure calls, said Sugar. That's what Mom did, isn't it? Bailey's voice sounded sad. Sugar looked at her granddaughter. Out of the corner of her eye, she watched Bailey twist a brown hair she had pushed behind her ears. Bailey's sweater was worn and too small. She hadn't come north with the clothes she needed for the cooler Virginia weather. She needed more jeans and sweatshirts, a warm jacket, and maybe a new pair of shoes. Her shorts, sandals, and t-shirts were fine for hot summer days, but the air was often cool at night, much cooler than Bailey was accustomed to in Florida. They needed to shop soon before she enrolled Bailey in school. She knew that it would be hard for Bailey to start over in a new school in the middle of the year. Most kids would already have made best friends, and they were used to their teachers. The material being taught might not be the same. Sugar sighed. Sometimes having an adventure means leaving the people you love for a little while, said Sugar. Usually home seems so much better when you return. That's a part of having an adventure. Now, I thought you'd want to know about mine. I've had too many to tell you about between now and when we get back to the house, but I've ridden in a blimp. I've gone deep sea diving, and once I rode an elephant in a circus and floated in a hot air balloon, said Sugar. And I drove across country all by myself when I was just out of college. Here's our turn. And pass those ginger snaps, young lady. They are for both of us, you know, even if they are not on my diet. Bailey stopped twisting her hair and smiled. As they came to Sugar's driveway, Sugar stopped the truck and said, "What on earth?" Someone had dumped garbage all around the mailbox. Empty cereal boxes, milk containers, beer bottles, chicken bones, and dirty diapers spilled out from torn plastic sacks. Who would do that? Sugar muttered. I guess we've got some cleaning up to do. Okay, see you soon.